As I mentioned, and I hope that you're all here to learn more about what we're doing around building inclusive community in the college. And I want to make just a couple of observations. You see that we're using the meeting format rather than a Zoom webinar format. And that's because we received quite a bit of feedback from people saying they'd like to see each other. Sometimes on the webinar formats, you feel like you're part of a horde, or maybe you're the only attendee. Where's everybody else? So we wanted to offer that, especially since we're talking about community here. That also means that we are leaving the chat public and open. And so we expect you to put in comments, questions as we go throughout the hour. We want it to be a transparent place so that people can see the kinds of questions that are coming. So we also expect that they will be respectful. So if we see anything that is disrespectful to people or groups of people, harmful, hateful kinds of comments, we reserve the right to remove you from the meeting or to disable the chat. And we do have several moderators of the chat who will be going through to make sure that we don't lose any questions as we go along today. So in thinking about how we want to present and why we want to present this, this work to you, it occurred to me, and also to the Ideas in Action group, which I will tell you what that means in a little bit, that it might be helpful if I shared why building inclusive community is so important to me. So I began as Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences July 1st of 2020. And right from the beginning, one of my 3 priorities, along with academic excellence and cura personalis, was building inclusive community. Part of that is from professional experiences, and part of it's from some of my own personal experiences. And I wanted to share those with you because they really do inform why I think building inclusive community is so important to any kind of excellence that we try to pursue. And it also informs, those experiences also inform the path forward and the way we do this work. So bear with me if you've heard some of these stories before, but I appreciate you listening to what I'm going to share. So many of you may know I am the daughter of an immigrant. My father immigrated from Spain when he was 15, did not know any English, had no money. And my mother migrated from Puerto Rico when she was a preteen with her extended family to New York City. She graduated high school. My dad did not. And when I grew up, he was a New York City bus driver, but before that, he was a short order cook. So he had lots of interesting stories, but basically, it was a working class upbringing, and one in which my parents really hammered home the importance of education. And luckily, I loved learning and loved education, so that worked out well. The stories I'm going to share with you, the little snippets, are my experiences of what college was like as a first generation college student, daughter of an immigrant, and Latina. So when I got into college, I got into a lot of different colleges, and including Ivy League schools. And one of my friends said to me, you got in only because you were Hispanic. And really diminishing all my other accomplishments and the things that I had done to get there. I was valedictorian of my high school. I did all these other kinds of volunteer experiences. None of that mattered. It was only because of this thing that I had no control over. That comment stayed with me a long time in terms of maybe I don't belong in some of these spaces. It really sat there for me. But I did go to one of those Ivy League colleges, and really excited, beautiful campus, really interesting courses, dynamic professors, sounds very familiar, right, to Gonzaga. And I took a poetry course. It was my first year seminar, loved poetry. I was so excited about it. Nothing I could say in that class was right. Everything I wrote was like marked up, red ink. I didn't know what I was doing wrong. I ended up the course with a B- or a C, and ended up like, I'm not touching poetry ever again. That's how I felt. I love poetry again. So, I came out of it, but it made me feel like maybe I don't belong here academically. I'm not smart enough to be here. I don't think the way these other students do. They can whip out a paper in an hour and get an A, and I'm working on it for hours and I can't get it right. Very frustrating. And to make matters worse, the dean called me in and said, writing is so important to the college career and to getting a job. You should take another course. It looks like you need to improve your skills. And I sat there quietly and nodded, but inside, I wouldn't say I was screaming, but I was like, I got to get out of here. I felt hot. I was like, why would I subject myself to this experience of being told that I'm not good enough, that I don't know what I'm doing? And I avoided writing classes for 2 years because of that. Like I couldn't do it. So my adjustment to college, that's just one piece. It was a rocky road. But the social piece was also difficult for me in terms of my interaction with peers. So my first semester, I'm walking with some friends and a student says, "Is that your real accent? Because it sounds so ignorant." I had a moderately thick New York accent. You'll notice that you kind of wonder, like, where did it go? I don't consciously remember working on removing it over the course of my college career, but I'm pretty sure that experience and some of the other experiences I had, it was like a survival tactic for me to get rid of that accent. Another time I went to a party and someone said, "Why are you wearing a costume?" I was not wearing a costume. This is how we dress up when we go out in New York. Like, this is what I wear. And so getting that from a peer made me also feel kind of like, okay, I messed up or I don't belong here. And then there were the kind of class differences. So constantly friends saying, "Hey, come with us to the Bahamas over spring break," or "over the summer, we're going to backpack in Europe," or, all these wonderful sounding things. And I had to keep saying, like, I don't have extra money for those things. Like, when I work over the breaks, all of that money goes to books, all of that goes to tuition, my loans. And it seemed like it was really difficult for my peers to understand that. And then they would also come back having great times, of course, talking about all the things that they did, and I felt left out yet again. So I share those. We're not, I'm not here for a pity party, but I share them because I held on to those kind of like bad experiences for a long time. But as I moved through my life and I started teaching and mentoring people, working with others, I realized that, especially working with Black women in higher ed, I've come to see that I also have privileged parts of my identity. So I am white passing. I am a cisgendered heterosexual woman. There's certain things that I have advantages, unearned advantages and unearned benefits, like mentors not seeing me as a threatening person to mentor, or I can speak up and I'm not seen as an angry person who's threatening other people. And those kinds of, that personal combination of being othered and accepted or included and excluded, I can use that to serve other people. If we think about being people for others in the Ignatian sense, and we all have those different kinds of combinations of being othered and accepted. And part of building inclusive community means part of it is personal, taking a personal look at myself, which is also Ignatian. St. Ignatius of Loyola talks about having to dig deeper and deeper so you can see yourself as the divine sees you. And so that you have the courage and the strength and the fortitude to act in a way that is aligned with, what is right and what is good. So that might mean I have difficult conversations with people who act in ways that oppress or exclude. It also means I stay curious. So what is happening and why? Why did that person just get treated that way, but also why, what kinds of systems do we have in place that reinforce these kinds of individual and group exclusions? So I can't do that alone. You can't do that by yourself either. And it's all up to all of us to create this inclusive community that we want based on, part of it is our personal experiences and part of it is that curiosity and humility that we bring to the work. And that's really what I value personally and in the college. And that's also why I'm thrilled that when I made a call to invite people to a new council that can work on diversity issues within the college, 30 faculty and staff volunteered in early fall of last year. And we're now up to about 40 people, including student reps, with different working groups who are going to share today the kinds of things that they're doing. And I just want to point out, are our plans going to be perfectly formed right now? No, and maybe not ever perfect. And will we make mistakes? Yes. And can we learn from our mistakes? Absolutely. And so we're approaching this work with humble hearts and from our own personal stories, like the one I just shared. And we hope that you can help us with this work, with suggestions, being involved in the work, supporting the work in some way. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to our moderator, Dr. Robin Kelly, who is the Associate Chief Diversity Officer in the Office of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion at Gonzaga. Thank you, Dr. Kelly.
Thank you, Anne-Marie, and thank you for sharing your stories, several of them. So I'm here to help moderate the town hall today and give you a little quick information. So the town hall format consists of short presentations by the Ideas and Action Working Group, followed by questions and answers. Showing up with your best self, and whoever that may be, in and of itself is beautiful. The more that we can bring our authentic selves with hope into the moment, the more that moment will show up for us. Now, that's an adapted quote by Amanda Gorman. You may recognize the name from her work as she did at the inauguration, but I thought it set the tone for this discussion and the sharing today. Now, with that said, this town hall is an opportunity for transparency and authentic dialogue. So I'm going to start by turning things over to the first working group for their presentation, faculty, staff, and student interactions.
And if while you're getting the slide deck up, I just wanted to say, so each of the working groups is going to share out just a few, 3 minutes really of what they're doing. And then there will be an opportunity for Q&A from the audience for any of us.
Good afternoon, everyone. Tara, do I have the floor?
Yes.
Thank you. I am Itohan Idumoyi, second year in Gonzaga University, Religious Studies Department. Thank you for this opportunity. I am representing my colleagues on the Student Faculty Staff Interaction Subcommittee. And these are all the members that we have been working together. We're supposed to have students in this committee, so we will appreciate if we have some students on this platform that will sign up to be part of this group. We ask this because as a bird that is trying to fly, you cannot do justice with flying with one wing. So it will be helpful if we have the student perspective. We invite you to be part of us. Next slide. Our mission in this subcommittee is to foster inclusive and equitable student faculty staff interactions within and outside the classroom. We'll break that out soon. Next. This is our commission. We feel the connectedness, and therefore we have the commission to explore and develop to foster and to advance these resources in such a way that first we acknowledge that we need to make positive things happen. We don't want issues breaking out before we take action. So, to prevent the student faculty in class sensitive moment, those moments where students will not be able to reach out to the faculty and feeling out of place, we acknowledge that all the students, including us as faculty, we are all not on the same page. How can we come to the same level to appreciate all our voices at the same time? This is where we get started. We don't want the negative happenings in our space. Secondly, we are working on fostering the inclusive in-class response to sensitive and social moments. How should faculties respond when these things inadvertently happen within our space? How do we manage it to not blow out of proportion? Third, we support an inclusive community. So beyond our classroom and the larger college and campus, we're looking to manage a situation where everybody is welcome and everybody's voice matters a lot. And then inclusive advising. We need all that. We are called to different assignments in different stages. So advising our students is something we need to be intentional about. Next. Tara, next. And this is our long-term goal. Like I said initially, to encourage and facilitate our student input. It is not a case of one tree makes the forest. No. I love this quote by John Mbiti. I am because we are, and we are because I am. We all need each other to succeed in what we do. And that's why we need the students' input. We're also looking in the long term to work with the bias team. We depend on this team to support what they and this subcommittee is doing to make a success of this student, faculty, and staff interaction. And finally, thankful that Dr. Robin Kelly is willing to join in with us, the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, sometimes calling for trainings or calling for moments where faculties will come together and explore opportunities to make inclusiveness an intentional subject. Last slide. Thank you, everyone. Merci, gracias, arigato. Thanks for the chance.
Happy Friday, everyone. My name is Tim Westerhouse in the music department and co-presenting with Mia Bertonoli from the Curriculum and Course Design Committee. We aim to help faculty become reflective, equity-minded teachers in the areas of pedagogy, how we teach, in subject matters and what we teach, in the sources that we use from where we draw our teaching materials, and in the environments that we create, inclusive learning situations. Next slide, please. Our committee is drawn from across the College of Arts and Sciences and includes 2 students. Grateful for Melina Monlix, who's been with us, and Ginger Monroe, who has just joined us. Next slide. Generally, there are 5 areas of goals that we're working on, and then we'll share just a couple of quick specific things. Over the next 3 years, we aim to increase the number of College of Arts and Sciences faculty who explicitly address issues of diversity, inclusion, and equity-mindedness in their classes, especially in disciplines where such issues or topics are rarely addressed. We aim to deepen the knowledge, skills, and confidence of faculty in using inclusive teaching practices in their classrooms. We aim to strengthen our knowledge, skills, and confidence in taking an equity-minded approach to how we design our courses. That includes what we teach, how we teach, and the sources that we use. We aim to expand the feelings of inclusion and representation of diverse perspectives, particularly among underrepresented students. And lastly, we aim to advise and support the core executive committee in updating our learning goals to include goals that address diversity, inclusion, and equity-mindedness. Next slide, Mia will share some short-term goals this semester.
Thank you, Tim. We're already in the process of identifying community members who can serve as resources, mentors, partners, workshop leaders, and so forth in faculty development efforts. We started collecting this information at LEAD, and we invite you to email me if you'd like to be added to that list. We recognize it may be useful to collaborate with colleagues in similar disciplines. So the CTA event on March 17th will focus on forming discipline clusters with interested faculty and identifying needs and resources that will inform our work moving forward. I'm also really excited to announce the CTA will be adding a faculty fellow for inclusive pedagogy. So stay tuned for more information and the call to apply. To promote systemic structural change, we'll work with the College of Arts and Sciences Dean's Office and the CAS Curriculum Committee to incorporate diverse and equity-minded guidelines and standards into structures and policies. For example, do new or revised curriculum proposals address and meet student learning outcomes related to diversity, inclusion, and equity-mindedness? Student input and feedback is critical to our work. We will listen to, gather, and highlight student stories through podcasts, videos, and other means to demonstrate how the incorporation of inclusion and equity-mindedness in our courses through texts and through the classroom culture really makes a difference in the lives of our students. Next slide, please. Tim?
Our work will entail sustained engagement with all of these aspects. We are developing a proposal to fund course redesign efforts by faculty, looking at hosting national leaders to facilitate intensive, comprehensive course redesign in those groups of similar disciplines: social sciences, performing arts, behavioral sciences. Mia?
The CTA will also facilitate the formation of learning communities that are focused on inclusive pedagogy moving forward through the next few years. And we will partner with other groups working on assessment to regularly survey student experiences to better understand the needs and to evaluate our progress in this work. Tim?
We'll be coordinating also with the IDEA's Faculty-Student Interactions Group to visibly identify the current mechanisms and to establish additional mechanisms for students to be able to express concerns about exclusive or inequitable practices and courses. And we will continue to highlight stories of successes in these areas, both internally and to our external communities. Thank you.
All right, hello everyone. My name is Shannon Cravens, and I'm an assistant professor in the Department of Chemistry and Biochemistry. And I'm here to represent the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion in STEM subgroup. What I'm showing you here on this slide is who makes up this subgroup. The faculty from chemistry and biology that are outlined in blue are the 8 individuals who originally volunteered to be members of Ideas in Action. But since our group has been formed, we have expanded to include faculty from math and physics to ensure that our conversations are inclusive of other scientific disciplines. And we welcome any other interested faculty and staff and students to join these conversations. On the next slide, I'd like to show you some data that has really been motivating our current conversations. This data represents the 4th-year retention and graduation rate of Gonzaga students. I want to draw your attention to the data boxed in red. What you're seeing is a comparison between white and Asian American students majoring in STEM with our BIPOC STEM majors. BIPOC STEM majors graduate more slowly and at a lower rate than white and Asian American students. And this rate is even lower for BIPOC students who are first generation and or financially disadvantaged. So we are clearly creating a campus environment in STEM that is more welcoming and supportive of our white and Asian American students than our BIPOC students. This is something we are committed to understanding and correcting. On the next slide, you will see what we are currently working on to address these issues. The overarching theme of this subgroup is the idea of building community. Currently, we are continuing the collection and analysis of data regarding BIPOC student recruitment and retention in STEM. The data I already showed you is just scratching the surface of what my colleague, Dr. Laura Diaz-Martinez, has currently collected, and we are happy to answer questions regarding those. We are also supporting students in the creation of a SACNIS chapter, which is the Society for Advancement of Chicanos/Hispanics and Native Americans in Science. This club is open to all students in STEM and the social sciences, and will broaden the scope of the community building efforts currently ongoing through the Gonzaga Science Scholars Program. We've also been in talks with CIRSE about how we can support their efforts to provide research opportunities for underrepresented transfer students. And we're interested in exploring collaborative opportunities with UMEC to promote student and faculty involvement in peer tutoring and mentoring programs. Our future long-term goals are to work closely with the SACNA student chapter to create faculty, staff, and student social activities that can help foster the development of a more engaged and welcoming community, and to implement a tutoring program that meets the specific needs of our BIPOC students. We are more than happy to take input and questions about any of these goals. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Angela Bruns from Sociology and Criminology. Could I have the next slide? These is a list of the members of our hiring and retention subcommittee. Could I have the next slide? Thank you. So the hiring and retention subcommittee is really focused on building a more diverse faculty and staff and making GU a place where people want to stay. So we know that hiring and retention is a multi-stage process. So our subcommittee has identified 3 task areas to foreground the various stages and to ensure that our group is doing work that addresses all of it. So I am working with a small group of folks on the first task area, which is really focusing on this initial stage of the hiring process, requesting a hire, writing a job description, advertising, and recruitment. Could I have the next slide? So a current project that my smaller group is working on is creating a job advertisement template for the college that can be modified based on department's needs. And we want to have sample language in this template. And our goal is really that this template and future job ads that are coming out of the college integrate our commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion throughout the entire job ad. We want to make the process of writing a job ad that meaningfully incorporates DEI easier for the departments. I'm going to turn it over to Jackie now to talk about her specific task area.
So we wanted to make sure the hiring process is clear and understood by all, including new faculty and new chairs. And this is specific to faculty hiring. There's a centralized space in SharePoint that it includes anti-bias and diversity literature, along with the processes, checklists, and a hiring rubric that looks for inclusive and equitable teaching practices. That's just the tip of the iceberg. What our group would ideally like to see is a link on the website that the college is hoping to build in the near future. And I'll turn this over to Jennifer.
Hi, so my name is Jennifer Akins, and in the group on subcommittee working on onboarding, retention, promotion, rank, tenure, etc., we are really aware that the needs that we have listed have been identified and addressed by others before us. And with that in mind, our first step has been to identify where we are so that we can continue this conversation. So for example, we know that the revised postdoc program will almost certainly include a robust mentoring structure. And we feel like that's really the best place to start is how can we have a more comprehensive cycle of faculty mentoring. Keeping in mind the infinite diversity within any identified group, we hope to find ways to incorporate some flexibility into the support of faculty in particular contexts, including those of the various departments across the college. And Jackie. Oh, I'm sorry, on the next slide. Sorry, under future projects, you will see a few ways in which we are looking at leveraging Gonzaga and community resources to support faculty in the intersections of their professional and personal lives. And now, Jackie.
Hello again. So we focused a little bit on our training resources, student roles and communities, and creating multiple touch points throughout the hiring process to ensure that we get more diverse hires. I'm just going to very quickly focus on the training and the diverse hiring. So we have Diversity EDU. Some of you are familiar with that. We also have the Dean's resources and literature that she most recently provided to the last hiring committee. And of course, we'll have future collaborations with the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, which is a great start. An exciting development that one of our members in our subgroup discovered was that SFCC has a search advocate position whose sole job as a non-voting member on the hiring committee is to watch the hiring process from start to finish to ensure that there's no implicit bias at play. And they use multiple checkpoints to make sure that the pool stays diverse the whole way through the search. So we're interested in maybe creating a similar role, and we'd like to pursue an option for training if people are interested. And I think it's you, Jennifer, if you wanted to focus on your future project. I think Jennifer might be frozen, or maybe not. Are you there?
Yeah, but I think that we're done.
Oh, great. Okay, fantastic.
Sorry.
You can take the slides down. Well, thank you for all the, I'm saying excellent hard work that you all doing. I think you deserve a round of applause. This is the part of the town hall where we're going to open it up to questions and answers. If you can remember, Anne Marie's instructions at the beginning was that you put your questions into the chat so we can better manage the questions and our responses. And after this town hall next month, we're going to put the Q&A on a web. Ideas in Action is going to have a website where they'll post the questions and the answers. And then they'll also send out an email to all the registrants with the questions and answers as well. And I'm going to take a look and see if it's anything in there. Okay. So we have a question that they're not sure, but if it's a question for today, but would they think it would be great to find out more about other student groups like SACNAS in other disciplines? Does anyone care to take that question?
So there's, I can start and maybe some of the other folks can jump in. So there are several different kinds of student groups. Sometimes they're in the professional societies, they'll have a student group. And so that I will have to depend on the different disciplines to help me identify what those are. But that is something that I'm willing to support from Dean's Office funds, is to create chapters for those kinds of groups. Another, in addition to SACNAS, there's ABERCAMS, which is, I'm forgetting what all of the words mean, but it's for Black, Latino, Native American students who are pursuing research in the biomedical sciences. So sometimes students will choose to be part of that because they're going to be presenting at, it's not so much a chapter-based program, but a conference, a national conference where you can be with other students like you instead of maybe the only one in the lab. So there's other opportunities for that as we learn, and as you all know, to share that with us so that we can build out a list perhaps and find out ways to support those groups. I'll see if any of the other working group leads know of others in other disciplines, especially arts and humanities, because those are not covered by ABERCAMS or SACNAS.
Anyone else want to respond? Okay. This next question, how will the university encourage and engage students who don't identify as BIPOC into these newly formed groups? And I would say this question just because this is a town hall specific to the College of Arts and Sciences, if you can answer from that perspective.
I can answer regarding SACNAS. So SACNAS, even though it was founded as a Society for the Advancement of Chicanos, Hispanics, and Native Americans in Science, it's actually grown to include all diversity and allies. So the SACNAS chapter at Gonzaga is actually welcoming everybody, as long as you are either an underrepresented minority in science or an ally that is interested in increasing and supporting diversity.
Okay, this is a comment / question, okay? And the question goes, I wonder if we might envision the diversity EDU exercise as more required than optional for faculty. Is there a good reason not to do it for faculty? Not really. You want to talk about our partnership, the partnership with the Office of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, Anne Marie, and how you've come to, I guess, give this opportunity or provide this opportunity to your faculty and staff?
Yep, sure. So for those of you who might not know what diversity.edu is, although I think a lot of people have very strong feelings about diversity.edu. It's an online training and diversity, equity, and inclusion. It includes vignettes, some educational materials around race, gender, sexual orientation. And it really, we're considering it. And when I've talked to Dr. Kelly about it, it's baseline, are we all talking about the same thing? When we say, I experienced a microaggression or someone microaggressed against me, are we really using the same words? Do we understand what that means? Do we understand the power dynamics? So is it possible for someone who has a lot of power, whether it's because of their race, other identities? Sometimes I hear people with a lot of power saying, someone microaggressed against me. I'm like, oh, this person doesn't understand what a microaggression is. And so if we're going to build inclusive community, we have to have a common language and a common understanding of what some of these things are. And so that's how I have kind of come to do it. And in fact, when I first took it, I was like, okay, I've done a lot of diversity trainings and I also have personal experience. I wonder what this training is going to be about. I mean, I was genuinely curious, but I still did it and I learned some things. And even the things that I knew, I was like, oh, what a different way of looking at it. Or this is a really neat way of explaining something that I can use next time I'm having this conversation with a student or a staff member, or even a family member. So when I hear, I have not made it mandatory in the college, and I've been clear about that. At the same time, I feel like if we value building community with our students and staff, our colleagues, we will do this because it's the right thing to do to build community. It shows we care. And it shows that we're humble enough to take a look at, where do I have some knowledge? Where don't I have some knowledge? And where can I build from here? That's how I look at it. But I have received a number of different kinds of responses to it. And Dr. Kelly and I have talked about it too. We have consistently growing rates of people in the college completing it, which I'm very happy to see. And I hope that it continues to increase while we have it. So those are my thoughts.
Yeah. And just really quick, institutions all the time think about whether or not to require professional development for DEI. And sometimes it can create a slippery slope where you don't have the desired effect. And the approach that we're using, at least right now, not saying that it's going to change, is that we want to set the expectation. And we tie this, and it's so tied to our mission at Gonzaga, and that we want to create a culture that we want to change the culture, but we want to create a culture that this is an expectation. So right now we're offering it as voluntary, but the expectation is that, you would participate and you would take it and you would learn and it improve the environment, not only for our students, but other faculty members and staff. Okay, so I'm going to move to the next question. Regarding hiring.
Can I add one little thing?
Sure.
It's also so intimately tied with our Jesuit mission. If we stay curious, we meet people where they are, we ask, we do the self-reflection that's needed. That means we're not just doing self-reflection on, self-reflection includes how we treat other people. And so diversity.edu and other opportunities are just another way for us to live out that Jesuit mission. So I just wanted to, it's not separate from our mission, it's intimately involved. And I know that Dr. Kelly and Mission and Ministry are working on that to reinforce that to help people understand that they're not separate things, just like academic excellence and diversity, equity, inclusion are not separate things.
They're the same.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Okay, next question. Regarding hiring, minority candidates have turned down our offers, often expressing concern about living in Spokane. I'd like to see a more concerted effort to connect with minority communities locally and see other work done to make Gonzaga and Spokane more welcoming. So for example, Mary Jane suggesting bringing postdoc graduate students to campus to speak and start building relationships early. I know it's not a question, but I know it comes up a lot.
I think that's a great observation and a great idea that we need to keep at the forefront. And I just spoke with one of the other deans of a local university, and we were wondering if we could connect faculty of color at several of our universities in the area so that there's a wider network also. So it, part of it is community and what's happening in the community, but also in the academic community, not just at Gonzaga. So that I think there's a lot of great ideas and things that we can do. We actually need to set targets and do them.
And I believe there's a survey that I was sent from one of the council members, the Spokane council members, to see what the climate and culture is like for Black African Americans in particular in the area. So there is some interest in taking a look at the greater Spokane community for that. And this town hall is not about the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, but we're also looking at the underrepresented minority postdoc program to help diversify the professorate and connect them to not only Gonzaga, but the surrounding community. Okay, the next question. I'm interested in hiring. 1, do we have someone on campus who is an expert in DEI hiring best practices? No. And 2, what will be the measure of success in hiring? For example, the candidate pool, the interview pool, the person who gets the job. And remember, this is a College of Arts and Sciences perspective.
Yeah. So, and when Robin was joking and saying, just kidding, that's for real. She has expertise in recruiting, retaining faculty and staff from diverse backgrounds. So we are looking forward to collaborating and learning more about that. I can also tell you, I did 2 weeks ago met with all the search committees that will be hiring faculty in this coming cycle. And we talked about how I will probably be a bit more intrusive dean than what people are used to in terms of hiring at each stage. Recruitment, the job ad, how the search committee arranges the meetings, how people are reviewed in terms of their work, and making it very transparent in the job ad what we're looking for and what we're going to be grading. If you want to take think about it as the job ad is like a syllabus, and you have a rubric that you're kind of putting against the syllabus to make sure that when we are in the selection process, we asked all those questions that we want to know. We asked for that information. So just making it very clear what we're looking for, including around equity and inclusive learning environments. So we are getting a lot of help from the Office for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion and HR, and working with others too. But that is something that the faculty and the staff on these hiring committees are really paying attention to this year. And we're trying to build in processes to take us into the future. I hope that answers the question.
Anyone else from the Ideas and Action working groups, feel free to chime in on any of these questions.
Yeah, I don't mean to use my dean privilege so much.
It's okay. Okay. This one is pretty long, and I think it's more of a one of those comment questions. So bear with me. This isn't really a question, more a concern. Excuse the dilemma. I attended the Courageous Conversations Beyond the Shirt event last night, and the students were quite discouraged about how few faculty, staff, and administrators attended. Many of the things mentioned in this town hall address some of their concerns voiced. My question is, how can we as faculty and staff be more directly connected and engaged in the worries/concerns? They felt very unheard last night, and here we are in separate discussion without them, or with very few of them. I feel like this is a Venn diagram with no overlapping center circle, or a very small one. How can we do better? We are starting, it sounds like, but I think they need to be included in these town halls to know the work that is being done. Thank you for that comment.
I'm going to keep my comment brief so to make sure that other people can speak. And we did invite students to this particular town hall, and we are in the process of inviting more to the work of ideas in action. And I want to put it out there too that we'll be, I'm starting a student advisory board for the college in fall 2021 to hear more directly from students, because I feel very distant from students in this role, and I would like to hear more directly. So those are some things that we're doing. And I'm one of the people who, I will say this, I registered for the Courageous Conversations, but did not attend because I heard at an earlier meeting earlier in the week from a student who said that sometimes when faculty are present, students don't feel as free to share. And so I didn't want to attend and squash any conversation. But it sounds like we have an opportunity here in terms of making clear expectations about, yes, you are truly invited, or you're invited, but only in a listening role, or, you're invited and we want your full active participation. We could probably do that better for our events, and maybe we can seek that information for other events too, so that we have more of that dialogue. I'll leave it up to maybe some of the other working groups to share.
I would just add that GSBA reached out intentionally to some members who are seen as people who are involved with that. And so I think that type of explicit invitation is exactly what I think we need to extend as well as a college. With there's so much programming going on right now, but any opportunity where we show up as faculty to listen is just really meaningful for those students. And I think part of the key might be working with you, Robin, and ODEI to streamline those and help identify for faculty so that we know which ones are especially meaningful for us to support and to listen and learn.
Tim and Emery, thank you so much. I think we're also learning. I think, we get message from other administrators that students don't want us to talk to them or don't want us to engage. And then we find out, no, they really actually do want us to engage. They may have just been having a moment where they had to deal with a certain situation. So, we're learning this all together. But I think the comment was so key is that if we're regularly communicating with students and engaging with them and including them, then we will know when we're invited to stuff or they want us to be there and to hear from them. So we're also learning too in ODEI, when is it, when especially during student activism, what stage are they in? Are they at a stage where they want to talk to us and they want to engage with us? Okay, they didn't want to talk to us a couple of weeks ago, but that has nothing to do with this event that they're putting together. So being more engaged with the students, I think is critical. Did anyone else have a comment or?
Yeah, I'm the marketing coordinator for the college, and I'm just now hearing all of these really great bits of feedback, and I feel like I now have a really great clarity around how to communicate with our students when it comes to these events. We're just now building our infrastructure in order to communicate with them, building a newsletter, building our social media where they seem to be more. So now that I've heard this, I know I need to speak more directly to students about these types of events and what we would like, how we would like them to participate. and just assume that they will be communicated with. I fear that I'm over communicating with them. So I think as my role as a marketing coordinator, I'm taking all this to heart and I'm going to use it to be better. So thanks.
Thank you.
I'd like to chime in here from the STEM group as well. I think this is one of the things we're so excited about having that SACNAS chapter, because we want to create a space for our students to have these conversations more organically with faculty and staff, that it's not just you have to go to an event and this is the only time that we're going to talk about these things. So to create a space for our students within their home departments where they feel like they can walk up to a faculty member and talk about these very challenging issues is something that I think having faculty work directly with those student clubs is going to help foster in the future.
Absolutely. Anyone else? I think we have time for one more question. Okay. This is it. Looks like some comment, some question. Key groups as well as are those who mentor PhD students in the top research university, especially Ford Foundation Fellow Conference, has postdocs as well as but dissertations. Among them are people who have single-handedly doubled and tripled the number of PhDs in fields like psychology, for example. There is a national list of 1,000 Black scientists. A Ford Fellows is creating this. This is a question about networking. How well plugged are you into your minority committees of your major disciplinary associations? For example, the MLA, the AHA, the AAA, and the ASA. All of them have these listed on their websites. And I would urge us all to take advantage of that information when thinking of a job description of a network for reaching underrepresented minority candidates. I would suggest one strategy: reach out locally, meet others you see in the same spaces, those who have spoken today, as well as nationally to the disciplinary associations. And the directors of said disciplinary organizations are often known to us. In my case, the AHA and the MLA are close friends. And that was from Dean Gonzalez. Okay. All right. So that was more of a comment. I'm gonna move maybe to one more question. You think we have time for one more question? Okay. I am delighted in this conversation and I want to thank all of our contributors. I find myself wondering how we might invite those students, faculty, staff, and administrators who might feel uninterested, defensive, or resistant into this space. Thank you.
That is a great question, and one that we often ask ourselves on Ideas in Action. And I think part of it is those personal relationships we have. That's where I'm at a disadvantage as a new person. I don't have long-standing relationships with some of your colleagues, or our colleagues that you may have. And I know that some of you have reached out personally or individually to people and invited them in. For instance, the STEM and undergrad group, just saying, hey, we're doing this work. Do you want to be involved? And sometimes we interpret someone's inaction as disinterest, when in fact they might not know what's going on. They don't know where to start, and so they feel like they can't initiate it, but they want to help and assist. And so everyone, I think, has a role, and sometimes just inviting someone in can be a way to bring in that extra energy. So that's one suggestion. I put that out to all of you who are here. If you are interested in some of these working groups and you're like, I want to be more involved than I have been, please reach out to us. And then for those of you who are doing the work, invite more people in, so that, that's one way. I'm going to turn it over to the working groups to see what you think about people where it's not so much, I don't know what to do, so I can't start, like I don't feel comfortable starting something, but how do we, I guess the disinterested could be so many things. It can also be a euphemism for actively against working on some of these things. But what do you all think?
Anne-Marie, I would just say that on the curriculum and course design committee, one of the things we talked about was sometimes people don't see their specific discipline as having any relevance to this topic. So trying to coordinate opportunities for people from similar disciplines to come together and share what they're doing in courses that look similar to mine is one way I think we can help with that. But we welcome other ideas on how to bring in more people into these conversations.
It's been a robust question, Nancy. It was a great question. I smiled when you put it in the chat. Positively motivating is going to yield more meaningful engagement with these. And one of the ways we, in addition to what Mia mentioned, looking at how can we highlight and share stories where we show how this work makes a real meaningful difference in the lives of our students. We are a student-centered organization. We love it here because we love to teach. So there are a few works that we need to do some collecting of those stories. I know Raymond Reyes is thinking about starting a podcast, different ways to share some of these stories. But we also need to address some of the structural opportunities and possibilities. So even those course design elements, if we're going to be having redesigned curricula or new curricula, every single person is going to need to engage in some of these questions. So we're trying to look at multiple ways of engaging with that.
I know another area that we've talked about too is, so part of it is motivating and part of it is incentivizing. And some people, even in ideas in action, there's some disagreement about that word incentivize. Like, why are we going to incentivize people for things that they should already want to do? And so how do we even think about that in terms of maybe recognizing and rewarding versus incentivizing? How do we recognize that they're strapped for time, especially COVID time? People have caregiving duties all day long that they didn't have before, other kinds of challenges. And so how do we make time for people? I'm going to put a plug in for the Current Personnel's professional development funding. That's one thing that you can use, money that you can tap into to do some of this work, whether it's around your curriculum, your course, your scholarly or creative activity. But that, there's some things out there. And if you come up with even more creative ideas, we would love to hear them, because we want to make this work, and we want to make it as it's not going to be easy, but as easy as possible for you to spend the time on this work and spend the effort and then reap the benefits of it, and to see your students benefit from it as well.
We are at time. I hate to end this because it seems like we were just getting started, and we have several questions. Remember that the Q&A will be posted on the Ideas in Action website, and then also there'll be an email that'll go out to registrants with the questions and answers. This is a great start, but it's a start. And I'm going to turn over to Anne-Marie. Do you have any closing statements you would like to make?
I just want to thank everybody for showing up today, for the presenters, for all the work that is going on behind the scenes that you don't see. I've been so delighted to work with this fantastic group of people, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they're doing. I'm also so happy that all of you who may not be actively involved in Ideas in Action here to listen and to learn more about what we're doing. So thank you so much for supporting this work, and we will keep you updated, because as Dr. Kelly said, this is the start. So we've got a way to go, but we're doing it together.